Right, today is Wednesday, the 31st of May. And I've just dragged the Mustang, the Blue Meanie, out from where it's been, under that tree where that Fiesta is, since last August. Why? Because I've entered it in Street Weekend. Now, Street Weekend starts 2 weeks on Friday. The Blue Meanie hasn't moved since, like I say, last August, so what's that, 9 months? He's absolutely covered in tree detritus and this horrible sticky sap. It also, well, you can't see through that guff, has no gearbox in it. So, all I've done today so far is drag it out from there, put it here, and stick it up on these axle stands, or some Land Rover wheels and some chocks of wood. What are my chances of having it running for Street Weekend 2 weeks on Friday? Well, let's see. I think tomorrow I'm going to have a damn good go at getting my rebuilt gearbox back in. Then there are a few other jobs to do. Then it's got to be MOT'd and taxed, and then it'll be ready. It sounds dead simple if you say it quick like that, doesn't it? So let's see. Right, time to crack on. So the last bit we were doing was fitting this heatproof sleeve to the clutch cable, because as you can see, the clutch cable goes over the top of the headers, curls round, and goes under the bloody headers, so it gets really hot, and your lovely cheap Chinese adjustable clutch cables really don't like being that hot. So we've fitted this DEI heat sleeve, which is actually meant for spark plug wires. And we'll see if that prevents further burnage of the clutch cable. Right, and now the phone's battery's nearly flat, so we'll pick this up in a bit. Well, it's been a good afternoon's work, I reckon. We've got the gearbox back in, and given the fact that it was me and Unpaid Intern 2 here mauling around on a trolley jack in the gravel, we have the gearbox in, the gearbox mount and cross member on, prop shaft in. Happy days. All we have to do now, connect that wiring, put the exhaust back on, and that's always a laugh. Oh, and I must remember that the diff has no oil in it. That's a job for another day now. just been fitting these aftermarket single piece headlamp units from, I think they're from LMR. I got them second hand, new, but second hand, if you know what I mean. And we've been having a right game. Aside from all the wiring differences and the fact that the headlamp bulbs don't quite fit, you have to really sort of elbow them in, which is nice. I mean, anybody would think that stuff made in Taiwan wasn't the best, but what we mainly found was on the back of the unit here, there are these 3 great big adjusters which stop the unit seating itself. So what I've had to do is get in there with a bloody hole saw and make 3 enormous holes. Otherwise, these things hit the back of the bucket and then they don't sit flush. However, even now, when the part supposedly does fit, I mean, it's not bolted in, but that's a hell of a panel gap, isn't it? Still, panel gaps on this car, as Adam pointed out, are not exactly up to Bentley standards. They're up to bent standards. So we'll get them in and hopefully the car will look better, and hopefully the bloody headlights will be slightly less inefficient than they previously were. That's the previous lot down there, and they're all really, really clouded. Right, next. Right, well, our Taiwanese one-piece headlamps are finally in. It did involve butchering the back of the headlamp bucket with a bloody hole saw to get them in. However, if you'd care to pull off the storage plastic, I think that looks a lot better. However, with these comedy panel gaps all round, I mean, the bonnet isn't actually latched shut, but it's kind of level there. I can't get my hand in there. So, yes, if you're going to buy the one-piece headlamps for a Fox from LMR, late model restoration, that's kind of what you get. Okay. Now we're underneath the car, and I'm looking at my own ring, so to speak. There's the diff. This is a Ford 8.8 inch unit with the back cover on. Now, I took the cover off to check the gear ratio, so I didn't know exactly what gears this thing had in it. Turns out it's 3.7 to 1, and they're Ford gears, so I suspect they could be from something like an Explorer. Now, the rear cover here, from the factory, they don't use a gasket, they use a bead of silicon sealant. And a lot of people I know, when they rebuild them, just use a band of silicon sealant. However, half the time people go too bonkers with the little bead of silicon, and if you're not careful, you end up having it squidging into the diff. And that's stuff you really don't want floating around inside your differential. I'm going to use a gasket. You can buy aftermarket gaskets, but yeah, if you are going to use the silicon method, just don't use too much, because some of it will end up inside the diff. So this is the back cover off of the 8.8. What you're looking at here is, it's kind of square, but this is the bottom edge, if you like. As you can see, great big dollops of silicon that have gone sort of inside the casing, fortunately not floating around loose. This is the bottom edge of the cover, and as you can see, this is where a lot of people choose to put a trolley jack. So if you bend this cover and it bends outwards, all your oil starts to leak out. Another reason why I want to fit a gasket rather than the bead of silicon. As you can see, Adam here is using a little Stanley blade to scrape the remnants of silicone off. And then we'll give it a good wash with the brake cleaner. And in here, I've been given some diff gaskets. Hurrah! So there we go. That's next. Right, jobs today include refitting the shifter and all the centre console. Because I'm on my own today, I don't have Adam's help. So that's next on the list. That plug last night, that plug, because last night I discovered that by far the best way to get the oil into the diff is to drill a hole in the floor above the diff and run a funnel and a pipe through there, because there is no room to just squeeze a bottle of oil in from above the diff. You can't even see the filler plug, never mind get to it, unless you're on a 4-post ramp. So there we go, that's today's jobs. Well, we've come across a bit of a snag already. The rubber boot that goes around the shifter, well, there's the remnants of the old one. And that's what it's supposed to attach to. It goes over there like that, and there's supposed to be a nice big rubber bellows in between the two. As you can see, it's suffered a lot over the years. There's a lump of it. It has just disintegrated. So Ben, across the way, has given me this off of a Land Rover Defender. And I'm going to see if I can adapt, i.e. horribly bodge it to fit, because I don't want to go without, because aside from keeping a bit of the heat off the exhaust out the cabin, that boot also protects the shifter mechanism from dust and water and grit and God knows what else. So yeah, if I can keep the crap out of there, I'll be a happy man. Let's see what lash up we can do here. So there you go, we've managed to bodge that up a treat using the rubber bellows off of the Land Rover, a bit of carpet that I also found in the Land Rover, and the boot back over it. All I'm going to do now is right here, this is connecting, well, mainly the line lock on the gear shift. These connectors are a bit old and chunky, so we're going to replace them with something that's well, new and chunky, and hopefully that'll last us a while. New and chunky, but with heat shrink. Well, there you go, that's the shifter back in. The console and all the radio and all that other rubbish, for what it's worth. The radio's, frankly, that radio's only purpose is to fill a hole in the dash. Yes, as you can see, the rest of the interior, such as it is looking a bit sorry for itself. That scratching is caused because when you're driving, your coffee cup goes between the handbrake and the passenger seat. Yeah, that's the cup holder. Yeah, happy days. So that's another job done. Mainly just exhaust to do now. Well, it's Friday evening. A week this time next week we'll have completed the first day at Santa Pod, hopefully. I've just popped down this afternoon. I've tidied all the wiring up underneath so it's neither dragging on the ground nor sitting on the exhausts. I've refitted the prop because I forgot that I'd only put 2 bolts in the prop, so I found 2 bolts lying around and thought, oh, bugger, what are these off of? But they're those silly 12-point head bolts, so I thought, prop, yes. So I did that, then I dropped it on the ground. Then I gave it a quick wash, and I mean, this is just literally a bucket and hose pipe and sponge wash. So it's gone from being absolutely crusted with crap and bits of tree and whatnot, and now it's shining like a diamond in black goat's arsehole. It certainly does look a lot better. Yes, the previous video was of, or video clip was of this being washed. Unfortunately, as satisfying as it was to watch, the bloody thing cut out because the iPhone decided that sitting in the sun it was too hot, so it cut out. So, this gap at the top of the door lets a lot of water in, which I'm less than delighted about. So yeah, just for having a quick rinse with a hose pipe, it does look a shed load better. Still a couple of jobs left to do tomorrow, and then it's MOT time tomorrow evening. Wish me luck. Today is MOT day. It's Saturday. It's about 3 o'clock. The MOT is due just after 4. So we're just having another quick fertile around. I've managed to notice that a bird has managed to shite inside the door, which is quite an achievement. Yeah. So we could do with testing all the lights that we've faffed with. However, it's beautifully sunny day and we can't see much at all. So Adam's here. We're making some rather groovy plug wire separators because we noticed that one of the plug wires was burning on the manifold. So yes, using an assortment of cable ties, we're making separators to keep them off the manifold. There you go. Another money saving tip from the Blue Meanie. Right, now we're going to have a go at this side. We check the oil, check the water. I don't think there's a fat lot of fuel in it. That'll need attending to, and then we'll be off. Wish us luck. Right, it's Sunday, and good old Blue Meanie has passed the MOT, this, that and the other, but still having a few running issues. This here it's an aftermarket TFI module. It goes on the side of the distributor. Those 3 pins go into the distributor. Now, these do tend to suffer a lot from heat soak, especially when you've just fitted a nice billet aluminium distributor. So this one is going to be remote mounted. That's M for manual, I hope, because they're different between automatic and manual. So what I'm going to do is mount it elsewhere in the engine bay, attached to a lump of this heatsink. Obviously, I'm going to cut it off at that end there. I've got a nice strip of stainless there to make a bracket out of. and then we're going to run 3 wires from there to the distributor. Now, of course, they're not nice 1/4 inch spades. No, they're 3/16 or something. They're about 5 mil. So we may even have to grind down some bloody spades to fit. So that's today's job. Here we go. There is the relocated TFI module on the inner strut tower. Yeah, I had to pull some of the this conduit that all the wiring's in. I had to pull the wiring out of that as far as I could. Put it here, nice and out the way. I mean, it's not completely out the way. There's the bloody headers, but it's as out the way as is practical. Then I had to make this wiring thing that goes from there to the distributor. Yes, as you can see, I've still got the old TFI module in place. What this wiring is, come on, focus. Oh, never mind. Is 3 wires made from a bit of loom nicked from the scrap bin with some, what were they, 5 mil or give or take 5 mil terminals. That is the larger of the two you often find on a speaker, but smaller than the standard issue 6.4 mil spade, which is what, 1/4 inch. And in here I've got the 3 wires wrapped together, covered in tin foil. Yes, just kitchen tin foil, and then with a load of heat shrink over the top, shrunk down to fit. Now, because I don't have one single length of heat shrink, I've had to make it up from 6 or 7 lengths of, what's that, about 100 mil a piece. Now comes the time to take that off and replace it with these wires. Once I've ground down these a bit, because these are standard 6.4 mil spades, so I'm gonna have to grind about 1.5 mil off each one. Am I going to do it now? No, why not? Because there's thunder in the distance, and I foresee a spot of rain in our immediate future, so that'll have to wait till another day. At least I can take the tin foil back and put it in the kitchen. Right, there we go. Right, it's the big day. We're finally about to set off. So it's roasting hot. I've got my sunglasses on, I've got my cup of coffee, my co-driver, and my dog shit bag full of earplugs that I've nicked from work. What could go wrong? Except the fact that one of the trailer tyres seems to want to go flat every 10 seconds. But, be right. Off to Santa Pod. It's just gone 1 o'clock. We've done it, we've arrived. There's the bogs in the background for proof. There's Adam holding Pablo the pineapple. It's 1 o'clock, so they've just broken for lunch on track. I don't know what the speed camera van's doing there. So yeah, we're going to go unload a bit and maybe put a run in. Hooray.